I'm Joel Guy.
And I'm Naomi Guy.
And this is Why Will No One Date These Guys?
A relationship podcast exploring sex and relationships. And I literally forgot our intro. I'm gonna be honest with you.
We need to work on our professionalism.
I think we
need
do.
to be wearing monocles and top hats.
Absolutely not.
I think people come to us because they see us as subject experts, and this lack of preparedness from at least one of the party is really showing.
God damn it.
I've looked at our reviews, all three of them we have
no
far.
reviews.
All 300 of them so far. Several people say that we're not edgy enough. I do think we need to inject more edge into
Have they
our
seen
content.
my septum piercing?
Well, I don't think you understand what an audio podcast is. We're not doing a YouTube show where body modifications are apparent.
Maybe we should move into that.
Maybe we should, yeah. I mean, they haven't seen my awesome dragon tattoo that covers my entire back, and it, is really well done and well illustrated. Everyone who looks at it says, wow, Joel, you're so much better of a person in person than, through the audio format. They say that.
I'm not going to comment on that.
I mean, I think we should talk about what we're drinking today.
Today, we are drinking a Santa Cruz Organic Limeade. It's a lime-flavored beverage with concentrate.
Lime-flavored beverage. I always hate it when they do that. Can they just not call it limeade, or does the FDA have specific restrictions over...
I was literally going to, look at the nutrition facts and be like, yo, this bitch has fiber, but, it has...
heart-healthy fats
no
in this.
Protein... No
sugar.
All carbohydrates and sodium.
But organic sugar. That's the important thing.
I don't know if it's organic. I guess it is organic sugar.
I know it's organic. You know how I know it's organic? Because it sucks.
Oh, damn.
No, I do not like the flavor.
It doesn't taste like lime. It just tastes
It has the barest hint. Like lime put its butt into a thing.
Stop taking my thing. I say that about LaCroix.
Yeah. No, it doesn't have a lot of taste to it. Doesn't have a lot of sugar in it. But yeah, I can make limeade at home, and it's significantly better than this.
He's just plugging his own limeade, okay?
This is true. I mean, it's 14% juice, so it's kind of healthy.
Okay.
But no, I think it's a very weak version of limeade. If you're looking for an intense zing, you're not going to get it.
It's gluten-free.
Oh my God, it's gluten-free?
Yeah.
You know what they say? Lemons have glutens. I don't think they say that. Well, before everyone turns off the podcast and turns on something more exciting, what is our podcast about today, Naomi?
So we are exploring why no one is getting married and having children. And by no one, I mean less of the population than before.
Is this exclusive to people our age or people who are older? I don't have a good perspective on that.
All adults.
All adults.
I was the statistics I was looking at yesterday that we'll get into later in the episode are exploring all adults over the age of 18.
All adults over the age of 18. So the people under 18 aren't getting married as much.
I don't know.
Teen mom shows used to be a lot more popular in the early 2000s.
Mom was just watching Teen Mom 2, and she was the drama in this show.
Wow. Okay. I personally want to do this episode partially because the title of our show is Why Will No One Date These Guys? So it ties in nicely to that.
A podcast exploring love, sex, and relationships among millennials and Zoomers.
Glad you can finally get the intro down, reading it off a post-it note. But yeah, I think a lot of older people are confused why their children, their grandchildren, why people they know aren't dating or having relationships or having babies as much as past generations. I will say this, I've read a lot of articles discussing, all these trends, and I am a little skeptical because I think the time period we're looking at is very limited in the scope of human history. And that sounds like me trying to be really deep, and I'm not. I'm just saying when we talk about when people are supposed to quote unquote have kids or get married, it seems to be limited in scope to how things were done in the 1940s, 50s, and 60s. And I think the period before that, and the period before that, and the period before that were all very different in terms of courtship rituals and when people were expected to be married off. And so I do think this is a very modern trend we're discussing, one where it used to be people would come back from World War II and settle down and have 2.5 kids. I'm not sure which half the kid you'd want, but that's what they had. Top half, bottom half, inside, outside.
I think I would prefer the top half because I don't want to have to deal with excrement.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah.
It's kind of like that story in the Bible where that mom was trying to figure out there was this woman that had a child, and this other woman was like, no, you stole that baby.
Why Will No One Date These Guys is a conservative Christian podcast. answer.
I don't think I've ever quoted the Bible before.
I know what you're talking about. No, but I do think there was this new expectation post-war that people would start settling down and having families earlier. And I think everyone is comparing the current state of things to then has a very limited view of like the history of human courtship. And that's something I want to read a bit more about. I do want to like kind of understand more about how dating culture has changed over time. To my best understanding, it was a lot of like marriages for convenience, where it was like, hey, if these two families get married, you know, this is going to give more people power or benefits or whatever.
And then women started wearing pants.
Yep. Everything changed after the women started wearing pants.
Shorts, let me even tell you, shorts, everything changed.
Let's not get distracted by this. I do think, you know, it's worth discussing maybe our individual perspectives on the big three: marriage, settling down. Are those the same two?
I feel like those are two
different things.
No, I feel like those are very similar, if not the same. Like,
okay, let's just talk about the big two then.
You just have a life partner. Like we know someone that was living with his life partner for like 20 years. But they never, like, got married.
Yeah, that's fair. Okay, so the big two, getting married, having kids. Naomi, how soon do you want to get married?
Okay, so I don't even know, like, if I want to get married at this point in my life. Like, that's what at this point in my life, I'm obviously not getting married. But what I'm trying to say is, like, at this point in my life, I don't know if I'll ever get married. That's my thinking right now. I, like, obviously would love to, like, spend my life with someone. But I feel like I'm a pretty independent person. And, like, read a study recently that was talking about like women and how the like happiest women in the world, how the happiest group in the world is like women that never got married and just spend their lives like putting energy into their friend groups.
I disagree, because I also read that study and they had that section. They said, and actually the really happiest women are the ones who killed their husband.
Oh, okay. And got all their money. Yeah. Okay.
Yes. No, I think that's roughly similar to, you know, where my thoughts are. I don't fully understand, you know, how a life partner would fit into my current life. You know, I work pretty long hours during the week. I have a lot of side projects and business things that I work on. I don't genuinely think I'd be the greatest of partners at this point, just because I'm doing so much.
Well, I mean, confidence.
This is a self-criticism podcast, as a way of understanding our flaws.
Didn't we literally say, like in the first couple episodes, we were like,
self-love doesn't mean you think you're perfect. Let's be clear on that. Self-love.
But you have a little bit of confidence.
I have confidence. It's just I recognize that, you know, if I have limited time, I would not be a great father, not necessarily a great husband. Probably wouldn't be good at showing up to community events. You know,
at least you're better than the Duggar parents.
You know, at least I'm better than my Duggar parents. You know, it's a low bar to clear, but I'll step over it. That sounds good. I also don't know if I want to have kids.
Yeah.
I would say at this point I'm pretty firmly in the not having kids camp. And there's, you know, a couple of reasons for that. I mean, one of the biggest is, you know, I think it's absolutely crazy dedicating your life 18 plus years to anything.
I read, like, literally this morning, I was trying to figure out how much it takes to, like, have a child, like, money-wise, how much it takes to have a child in the United States. It was, like, $300,000.
That seems very low.
But, like, you also have to, like, I don't know if that included, like, that's a lot of money.
Well, factor in college tuition.
Yeah.
No, yeah, totally.
I don't know if that factored in college tuition, because the vast majority of, like, my friends, like, their parents didn't, like, pay for their college. Like, they're going on aid and student debt, so.
Well, I'm looking, and that's pretty good. That's only, like, $17,000 a year.
Do you know how many pairs of shoes you could buy with $300,000?
Look, I don't want to be selfish, you know, and maybe I think that's okay. Like, we shouldn't necessarily, you know, poo-poo on people, but I don't. My perspective, at least, is I'm not doing this because, you know, I want more money to play the lotto or go to the casinos or buy a new boat.
Oh, that's why I'm doing it. I'm just kidding.
I just genuinely think, you know, if I want to pass on my knowledge and my perspective of the world, if I want to feel like I've made a mark, there are a lot of ways I can do that. You know, I can become a teacher. I can, you know, volunteer in community centers. I can, you know, write books or, you know, visit conferences. You know, I can do travel and speak to diverse people. And I feel having kids is very limiting. And I don't, you know, want to knock on parents, because I think parenting is an insanely hard job, and, you know, all good to parents who want to have kids and put in the time and energy necessary to raise, you know, well-rounded individuals. But my God, it seems so insanely draining. Yeah. I don't think there's anything in my life that I give as much attention to right now as, like, parents give their kids and have to give their kids. Because, like, you leave a baby alone, you know, they're not going to be okay. They need constant care and attention at all times.
And that's crazy because, like, obviously, like, I don't know about you, but, like, I have off weeks where I just, like, am not myself. And I couldn't imagine, like, having to take care of, like, another human being while doing that.
And so, you know, I think, you know, there is a certain group of the population that thinks that kids are best raised in two-parent households. And I've read mixed research on that. The problem is I think it's a very patriarchal view because often it excludes the idea you can have, you know, non-traditional family arrangements like two mothers or two fathers. Or
People are gay?
People are gay, Naomi.
Oh
I'm
my
sorry
God.
I'm sorry for this revelation to come to you so late in the middle of our podcast.
Joel, please, before we move on, please ask me the question that you put in the outline about my perspective on having children.
Naomi, you're of quote-unquote child-rearing age. Why aren't you pumping out kids?
So I'm not of child-rearing age in my perspective. I am 20 years old. I don't know why I'd want to have children at 20 years old. Honestly, I look up to a lot of people. Well, I don't look up to, but, like, I really am.
Does that mean you look down on them?
I don't look down on them, but, like.
You look eye to eye with them.
I'm really, like, I am very impressed by all of my friends who have had children so far. Like, I have at least 3 friends that have, like, toddlers right now, like 2 and 3 year olds. Like, that's, first of all, crazy to me. One of them actually hid her pregnancy in high school.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, and, like, we went to, like, a school that required us to have uniforms. So, like, that was pretty impressive to me. It was, like, her senior year of high school, and she was pregnant.
Oh, well, you can wear the blazer. That definitely helps.
Well, she also, like, she just, like, zipped down her skirt the entire way and was just, like, so she didn't have to get, like, a maternity skirt. You know what I'm talking about? So, like, she was just popping out, but nobody noticed. Wow. And then she was gone for, like, 2 weeks, and everyone was, like, trying to, because we went to a small school, so, like, everyone, like, had their own perspective on why she was gone for 2 weeks. And no one was like, oh, she probably has pneumonia. Everyone was like, she's pregnant and had a child. But that's only, like, 5
weeks. My God.
Only, like, 5 people knew. And it was, like, a Kylie Jenner situation where it was, like, a really well-kept secret. And then she, like,
above my head.
She, like, told me it was, like, a couple months after she had the baby. She had the baby in February of her senior year. She was pregnant throughout her senior year because she got pregnant, but, like, the summer before her senior year. And she told me, and I looked at her, and I thought she was fucking joking with me. But she, like, no, she just went home. She didn't have any, like, after-school activities every single day, took care of her child. Like, her mom was the, like, daycare, essentially. Yeah. But, like, I am really impressed that she was able to take on that amount of responsibility. I have several friends, male friends, who had children in their junior and senior year of high school who now have, like, 2 and 3 year olds. Like, I'm pretty impressed by that. But at the same time, like, if I obviously, like, in an emergency situation, like, I'd have to deal with it. But, like, I could not imagine having a child right now.
I think of it sort of like monks, nuns, priests, because I have a lot of respect for people who can, you know, dedicate their lives to, like, this single thing, remaining, you know, focused, and, you know, not all of them are pure and pious, but, you know, a heck of a lot of them, you know, remain committed to their religious dedication and the ceremonies and rituals that surround that. And that's, you know, true of really any monks of any faith. I don't want to be one, but, you know, I can respect the commitment and time and energy that goes into it. So yeah, this is not a podcast we're just going to rag on parents who have kids. I'll say this: if you're going to have kids, don't have kids in America. America is not a place really to have kids.
Yeah,
have kids in a place that actually, like, treats you like a human being who needs time to recuperate, who needs time to bond with your kid and form an emotional attachment, and, you know, make sure that they're healthy and mentally ready for preschool or whatever. You know, have kids in a place, you know, like Europe. Have kids in a country that, you know, sends you a care package once you've had kids to show their appreciation for, you know, this incredibly onerous work that you've done.
I think it's like Switzerland that gives you like 5 months, like the mother, like 5 months after she gives birth to, like, recuperate and bond with her baby.
I think it's most European countries.
That's like crazy to me. And everyone like...
And I don't want to knock, you know, paternity leave either, because I think fathers also need the time to allow their wife to, you know, rest and recuperate. But, you know, I think it's important for them to, you know, have the opportunity to bond with their child as well. Yeah. Because, you know, we live in a society that doesn't give a lot of opportunities for families to spend, you know, lots of time together anymore. And the more opportunities you can, you know, create, especially when kids are younger, the better.
So to answer your question. Right now in my life, I don't see myself having children, similar to my marriage view. But
what
just
would need
because
to change?
What would need to change? The climate crisis.
Oh, damn.
I think Joel and I share a similar view on this.
Who is? Oh, okay.
You?
Me, yes.
Your name is Joel?
Just checking.
Okay. Joel and I share a similar view on this where we just don't want to bring a youngin into the world that would have to fight for their survival. I'm under the firm belief that, like, and some people would call this a pessimistic view, but I'm under the belief that, like, if you look at the data, like, we're probably the last generation that won't have to fight for our survival. So why would we be selfish and bring a new generation in that will have to fight for their survival?
Boy, those Gen Zers, am I right? I mean, I unfortunately can't say I deeply disagree. I don't know if it's going to be Mad Max out there, and I think most of the repercussions of climate change will be in the countries that are quote unquote referred to as the third world. The unfortunate reality is I think we live in a nation that can kind of buy its way out by, just installing more air conditioning units in their homes.
Yeah.
And, creating more
skyscraper
farms or whatever. But I think a lot of places around the world aren't going to have that opportunity.
Yeah.
And, the repercussions are going to affect the people who are least able to, roll the punches.
But of course, like, we live in Arizona. So, like, the temperatures here are going to probably go up even more than they are. Like, a typical summer day is like 120 degrees. Like, you can't.
I would say it's typical, but I see your point.
But, like, if it's going to go up, like, let's just say 20 degrees in the next 100 years.
Okay, that's not within the realm of possibility.
Okay, but what I'm saying,
I see what you're saying.
You can't fix an air conditioner if you're like if you go on the top of the roof, you're just going to melt.
Okay, now I'm going to say that's a very pessimistic / unrealistic
view. You can't pay enough.
Yeah, okay.
To have someone go on your roof.
The point you're trying to make, which I agree with, is I do think it's a little selfish to bring a child in the world that doesn't have the same opportunities that you yourself had as a kid. And I think especially when you're having kids at our age, and we'll get into a little bit.
No.
If you don't have the financial
resources. My age, not your age, because you're.
This applies to me too.
Okay, but what I'm saying is, like, a lot of people would be considering having children at your age.
I disagree. I mean, I need to read more numbers, but the people I know, the vast majority of them are not in either a financial position or like a mental position to consider having kids.
Let's talk about our friends for a second and give our friends perspective. Like, in your friend group, what is their perspective on having children?
Well, this isn't something we bring up on a consistent basis.
Oh, really? My friends bring it up a lot.
Really?
Yeah.
No, yeah, we mostly meet up to goof and
drink.
Yeah. I think of all the friends I have who are in committed long-term relationships, none of them have expressed the desire to have kids to us. Okay. And again, knowing what I know about their financial situation, which is, again, a very thin slice of what goes into, the decision to have kids, I would say none of them, are in a place where they're financially stable enough to raise a kid. I mean, especially, given how many of them are living out of apartments. I'm not saying you can't raise a kid in an apartment. Yeah. I'm just saying it's a little better if you have more space, more opportunities for the kids to play and, grow up and run to the park with the neighborhood kids and, make friendships, all that. So I don't think that works. So the people who aren't in relationships right now, I would say they're not even looking really for long-term relationships. They're testing the waters.
They just want a companion right now.
Yeah, they're interested in seeing what's out there, but they're not actively searching.
Okay.
And no one's, complaining about their biological clock or anything.
Okay.
But my perspective is very few people I know want to have kids. And for the people I do know who have had kids, it's unclear if they were wanted. I don't know.
See, that's really interesting because, like, I'm always thinking about biological clocks because, like, one, I'm a woman, but two, like, my major, like, I have to think about these things. Like, if someone comes up to me and they're like, hey, look, what's my egg count? And I'm like,
oh, God.
I'm just kidding. But, like, when you turn 30, as soon as you turn 30, like, the vast majority of women, their egg count goes down by half. So, like, you got to start thinking about these things. And you're closer to 30 than I am. I'm calling you out right now. But I don't know, you don't have to think about these things because you don't like have to carry a child in you unless you know something that I don't. But, it's just something that I'm not going to call out any of my friends. I'm not going to be like, and this bitch said this, but like,
if you're that bitch, you know exactly who you are.
No, they'll know. Like literally this week I was like going out to dinner with some friends and all of them were like, oh, like, I have baby fever and and my Pinterest boards are all marriage. And like, to be fair, like some of them are turning like 21 this year. So they can
21.
they can like drink at their wedding. But like, that was my like bare minimum requirement. Like I wanted to be able to drink at my wedding if I like got married young. But,
well, you can with your parents' permission.
not just drink Martinelli's while everyone else is drinking champagne. Mm-hmm. But no, like, they were like, oh, my Pinterest boards are all weddings. And like there's nothing against that. I just think that like a lot of my friends should really think about like their requirements, because all of them have like nieces and nephews. Yeah. So like I think they're just caught up in the sauce. Like they're just like, oh, I want this. And I don't think they necessarily understand the like full commitment of having a child. And I was like, look, like I can't afford to be an aunt right now, so you can't afford to be a child. And that's how I put it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting that, so many of your friends are interested in marriage, because I'm not sure if they want, a marriage with all, its good and bad, or more of the aesthetic of marriage, if that makes sense. And I'm not like trying to call
like a companion that's like stuck with you.
No, did you ever see the movie Mrs. Doubtfire?
No.
I saw it a while ago, and I'm going to probably butcher some of the details. Okay. But the movie's interesting because it's about a woman who's,
No, I know it's played by Robin Williams, right?
A woman who's cheating on, I believe, her soon-to-be husband with... Okay. No, not Mrs. Doubtfire. What the hell am I talking about?
I was like,
Mrs. Doubtfire is 100% the Robin Williams.
Yeah, I was like, what are you talking about?
Completely different perception. The Graduate. Why the hell...
Oh, yeah, I've seen The Graduate.
Okay, yeah, The Graduate. Yeah. So The Graduate, is about, a woman who's having an affair with a man, even though she's about to get married. The ending scene is her leaving her wedding and jumping on a bus with the person she's, been cheating on.
Yeah.
And, they're going out to their new life. It's an interesting, open-ended ending. It could go either way. But the director does this really interesting choice that's, stuck with me for a while. And that is they get on the bus and they sit down in the back and they drive away. And most movies, I think, would have like cut to the outside of the bus and show the bus like driving off into the sunset or something. Yeah. Right? And instead, the camera just lingers on their faces for like a minute and a half. So they're just sitting in the back of the bus and they, really excited because they just run away from the wedding and had all this adrenaline. And then they just like sit, and the actors kind of like quiet down. They start like looking around, looking like, just trying to find something to, stare at.
They're like, okay, what's next?
Then they almost look kind of pouty, and it just cuts to black.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I kind of wonder if that's, maybe people's perceptions on marriage, because they're like, oh, it's so, exciting and incredible. Yeah. But then, they actually get married and they're like, oh, my significant other has not, started cleaning up the bathroom after, we got together. My significant other has not started taking care of our kids now that, we're committed.
That's why you never put promises in your vows. Like, I'm going to make you lasagna once a week. Like, no, that's so unrealistic.
Yeah, but also people change over time.
Yeah,
so having
exactly.
these like commitments then. Yeah, I don't know. It's definitely not Mrs. Doubtfire. It's The Graduate. But I guess the point is, I mean, even in the 1960s or 1970s when that film came out, there already was this idea that marriage is not this happy, permanent state of bliss that I think a lot of people think it is.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering where that perception comes from. Maybe that's a topic for like another day, just discussing how media influences us.
Yeah.
But again, the fact that you have all these people who are making Instagram boards and, putting together idea lists of the kind of theme and aesthetic they want at the wedding.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem to even be about the relationship and the commitment. It's more of, how does this look to outsiders? How do others perceive me for being in this act of marriage?
Well, I feel like that kind of like we should roll right into like social media and how it like plays a role in like marriage and dating right now. But what I was going to say is, now it's funny that you bring that up, because talking about one of my good friends, she has on multiple occasions said, I don't want to get married. I just want to plan my wedding. So she'll just get married to herself, but she wants to plan her wedding.
Yeah. I mean, I don't even have that. Like, weddings just seem so unnecessary to me. It's like, let's blow $20,000.
Yeah.
Something very ephemeral.
I just want touching on something totally different, like the micro weddings that were happening during COVID. Like, they were like 3 people. Like, I'd literally want like, it'd be like a commitment ceremony. It'd be like the person, the officiant. It'd be me, my spouse, my future spouse, or like probably my spouse. It's considered my spouse at that point. Parents, immediate family, like siblings, and then like best friends. And that's like it. That would be like 25 people max. You know what I mean? But like some people that I know are like, oh, I want my great uncle that I've met once at my wedding. And I'm like, why would you want like a 500 person wedding if one, you can't afford it, and two, like that just doesn't make much sense to me if you've never known these people. Like, why would you want people? Like, I understand the reception. Reception's totally different. But like the ceremony should be like an intimate, like, okay, this is who, like a praise to the universe. Like, this is who I want to spend my life with. But like, it'd have to be like micro for me to feel like it was special.
Right. I mean, honestly, for me, like, you could spend $20,000 on a lot of things, and think about how much like catered Indian food you could get. Like, really
that's
nice,
what
like,
you're
Indian
thinking about.
food.
I
Maybe I'm
say
hungry right now.
that. I say, oh, do you know how many shoes you can buy with that? And you're like, how much catered Indian
Go
food?
to a courthouse, get a license, apply to the federal government, get your tax benefits, woo-wee-woo, invite over some friends to a park or something that's near your house. You can eat some delicious cake you purchased at a
I've
nice
seen some
bakery.
beautiful weddings at the Grand Canyon.
Oh, yeah.
I've seen, like, they do this beautiful photography. It's just like the couple and the officiant and the photographer, and it's a beautiful wedding.
Yeah, but I guess my point is you can express your love and spend time with the people important to you in much cheaper ways than blowing, half your year's wages on,
well, and that's what Mom did. Like, she was given a budget by Grandpa, and Grandpa was like, I'm so glad that you guys didn't get married in San Francisco, because it would have been like 4 times more. So they ended up getting married in like Indiana, because Mom was just practical. And she was like, this isn't like, she literally has told me on multiple occasions that she got married just and had a ceremony just for her family.
Just for the cake.
Just for the cake.
Yeah. Man, wedding shots on the Golden Gate Bridge. Now we're talking.
That would be epic.
Yeah, that would
just shut down traffic.
Shut down traffic.
Shut down traffic.
Now we're talking. You spend that $20,000 on your court case.
Get all of those like angry San Francisco goers like flipping you off in the background of your shot.
Right.
Yeah.
Naomi, should we get into the actual content?
Yeah, let's do it.
So we wanted to discuss, looking at the changing nature of relationships from a couple different perspectives, because I think, again, some people are coming at it from the wrong perspective of, this is, how things should be based off a 1950s, 60s, 70s standard. But also, I think this isn't just, relationship. It's not just weddings. It's not just birth rates. It's a combination of all of them. There's a lot of factors that play into that. So in terms of birth rate, New York Times wrote an article in early 2020 saying that, in early 2021, saying overall the birth rate declined by 4% in 2020 nationally. The birth rate declined for the 6th straight year in 2020, federal government reported. Early evidence of the coronavirus pandemic accelerated a trend among American women of delaying pregnancy.
But let's also talk about the fact that globally, the birth rate went down by 6%.
Yes.
Which I honestly thought it'd be a lot more, if I'm being honest, during the coronavirus.
I think I was one of the people at the beginning of the pandemic was thinking there's going to be a lot of post-COVID babies. Because I was like...
I've seen a lot of funny onesies about that.
Everyone's, locked down together with their significant other. What are they going to do besides do a lot of banging? But here's the thing. In survival situations, I believe the research has consistently shown, whether this is a concentration camp, you're stranded on a desert island, you are dirt poor in the middle of wherever America, people don't have as much sex. People tend to have more sexual activity when they're in a state where they are... we talk about Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Yeah.
Their basic needs are being met. When they're desperate, they're cold, they're hungry, it doesn't help the mood. And I think, in this instance, a lot of people were very desperate during the coronavirus pandemic. A lot of people were not hopeful about the future.
They weren't employed. They didn't have savings. They had to move in back with their parents.
That's a really good point.
Really cramped their dating style. I think it's interesting that you say that you thought that a lot of people were going to just bang it out with their spouses, because Arizona PBS published an article recently talking about the article was saying that barely more than half of adults in the United States, so people over the age of 18, are living with a spouse right now.
Yeah, that's like, 50.4%, 50.2%?
It was like barely over 50.
Yeah, and that kind of blew me away. there's a lot of definitions of spouse these days.
Yeah.
The definition has been stretched very broadly. I think also, the fact there's so many LGBT couples out there that have gotten married since, 2015 should have bumped those numbers up. But no, barely more than half is really surprising to me.
Well, how many people do you know that are living with their spouse? Like friend-wise, not like parents and
1
stuff.
in 10 maybe. Yeah. A lot of them are living, with roommates.
Yeah.
Or I don't think anyone I know, maybe 2 people I know tangentially are living with their parents. But for the most part, it's people living in homes or apartments with roommates.
Yeah.
Maybe you can date your roommate. Maybe that's an option.
That just gets really sketchy.
Yeah, it gets really sketchy. The marriage rate is lower too. Marriage ceremonies peaked in the early 1980s, where there were about 2.5 million marriages recorded each year. And now it's been falling, and it's around 2 million a year. So a drop of 500,000, even as the population is getting higher. I have to wonder if that means there's less bad marriages out there. People who got married just because their parents told them they needed to get married, or people who got married because one of them got knocked up and the other, felt obligated. Yeah. Things like that. That is a pretty precipitous drop. And again, I think it's a little more difficult having kids and raising kids in a stable environment if you don't have the financial benefits of, say, tax deductions that come with marriage. Yeah.
I heard a really scary thing recently. It was this guy, he was in some branch of the military, talking about the fact that men in the military don't want to live in the barracks, which is their dormitories, so badly because they're just really shitty living situations, that they knock someone up and basically tell the woman oh, we have to get married now. Yeah. Just so he can leave the barracks.
I don't know if it's about knocking up. I think it's if you're married, you get additional off-site housing perks.
No, that's definitely true as well.
There's no baby involved in a lot.
The reason if he couldn't talk her into marriage, he just knock her up kind of thing. That's what I'm trying to say. Fine. Yeah. This is another warning. Females out there, don't date anyone in the military.
Whoa there. You don't support our nation's armed forces defending our freedom, home and abroad?
It's not fighting for freedom. They're literally just stealing oil from different countries.
I disagree. I think we're protecting the U.S. dollar as fiat currency around the world, and also suppressing religious minorities we disagree with.
Thank you. That's what I was waiting for.
Okay. So less relationships, maybe less strong relationships, but then also different metrics of being an adult are being delayed as well. The Atlantic had an article in April discussing this, and they said that compared to the 1950s, 1960s, young adults appear to be taking longer to reach markers that we generally describe as being indicative of, quote-unquote, being an adult. Things like getting higher education, settling down, getting married, having kids, etc.
Oh my gosh, let's talk about that for a second, because I was literally just telling Mom that I would say that 25 to 50% of my graduating class has dropped out of college, if not temporarily, permanently. Oh, wow. Yeah. And that could be due to different reasons. I know a lot of people didn't like online learning, but I was always told that if you stop schooling, you're just not going to have enough oomph to do it anymore. Oomph is a technical term I like to use.
Technical term. Yeah.
As soon as you drop out, you just don't have the willpower to go back. So I know that a lot of people are working, if not part-time, full-time. And I just can't believe it, honestly. I have a different perspective on COVID learning, because I was oh, this is in my perspective, they're easier, to be honest. The classes are than going to class, because you have so much more time.
In my perspective.
I'm going to be fully honest with you. I have not yet cheated on a test in college.
I'm so proud of you.
Thank you. I didn't cheat in high school either.
I'm so proud of you.
Thank you. It was just so hard. I feel I was going to get caught. But anyways, what I was trying to say is that I just thought it was easier. So I was oh, why not just knock all these classes out while I can, while I have the willpower. Senior year, I'm not going to be oh, yes, I have all the drive in the world. Anyways, going back to what you're saying.
Yeah, so fewer adults are reaching certain markers at certain times. So young adults age 16 to 24 are less frequently settling into permanent jobs. Fewer people are married with children than in the 1950s, we discussed. The median age of first marriage for men rose from 23 in 1950 to 30 by 2018.
You better get kicking, man.
For women, the median age at first marriage rose from 20 to 28 over the same period. So that's interesting. Women went up by another year. So I think I believe there are more women in the United States in higher education than men. And women in higher education tend to be a bit more discerning in their life partners and
I
tend
have
to have
heard
higher
that.
standards.
Yeah.
And maybe that's its own separate topic.
Well, I heard recently that like the higher education that a woman gets, the less likely it is that she gets married because she just can't deal with men's bullshit anymore. That's not technically what the article said, but
This is an official sociological study. But yeah, like that's a pretty giant gap, 7 years, imagine having a kid at 23 and, by the time you're 30, the kid's already 7,
Yeah.
By the time you're 40, the kid is nearly, ready to graduate high school.
That's like crazy to me because like I've been hearing a lot of stories recently talking about like, oh, I had a kid at like 13, I had a kid at 15. And like by the time that kid's in college, like your life is just starting.
A little bit, yeah. That's
like you just already got that out of the way.
Mm-hmm. So different markers are being delayed. And again, this is comparing it to the 1950s. I think before that, it was something like 26, 27 for men to get married. So again, it was more of you need to be a fine, upstanding gentleman who gets a good education. And then we're going to, find a good woman and a nice family who you can get married to.
Yeah.
So again, relatively new phenomenon of post-war people, but still, I think, a good comparison point for kind of understanding how people's perspectives have changed over time. The article also kind of did push back on the narrative that millennials and Gen Z people are uniquely selfish. And I think that's a point that I really want to reiterate, where a lot of people who are older will say millennials are too self-absorbed to have kids. Millennials don't care about the future. Millennials just want to party and have fun. And maybe, that's true compared to, different points in the past. But when this article looked through a trove of decades of recorded interviews with college students from the 1960s to present, what they found was the college students all express the exact same identity issues and like personal issues as like kids do today. They were describing feeling overwhelmed because they didn't understand the best path forward, how to figure it out. They're worried about getting meaningful jobs and how to make high-stakes decisions when faced with numerous opportunities and trade-offs. They felt pressure from their parents to succeed academically and professionally. They felt pressure not to squander their opportunities. They also had a hard time finding support from others to help them navigate the new train of life after school. Right? Those aren't unique things to like one generation or another. It's not like people in the past were better prepared to deal with those things. It's just more likely to me that they were forced into certain roles and felt that they had to meet, society's expectation about, when they should be in a relationship, when they should be having kids, etc. What do you think?
I think that a lot of the reason why older generations like baby boomers assume that millennials are lazy is because, one, the way that baby boomers raised millennials, but two, I would say that they consider millennials lazy because they're not meeting these markers and they're not getting to the point where they, like, millennials feel comfortable getting to the markers like marriage and all the other children having age and stuff. So, and it's literally just because of financial situations. And I feel like a lot of baby boomers are like, oh, well, I did it on 5 cents. You can do it on 5 cents. You know what I mean?
What do you mean it's literally just financials? Because I thought we've been discussing a lot of social trends that also correspond.
Okay,
you're saying the root of it is
I'm saying the root of it, or like a major cause of the reason why a lot of millennials are not making it to these life markers, is because of that. And I'm obviously sort of making a large assumption here, but that's just like what I would say is a lot of the issue that's coming out of why older generations are calling millennials lazy.
Yeah, but I don't want to discount the social reasons that people aren't having kids. Like, I think people, if they desperately want to have kids, will find a way to, make it work. It might not be the same.
Yeah, because some people, like, that's their life purpose.
Sure.
Yeah.
And I don't want to knock them for that. But, I think there are others who worry about the environmental benefits of having kids like we were discussing. I read in a Times piece that the not having a kid can save a family's household emissions 65 tons of carbon dioxide a year, which doesn't sound like much, but if you go without a car for a year, you're saving about 2.5 tons of carbon dioxide, so 65 versus 2.5. So people who care, deeply about the environment most likely, are looking for ways that they can, cut their emissions and be better to the planet. And one of the easiest ways is just not reproducing. Maybe that's considered selfish. I don't understand. That seems like sacrificing something you might want for the benefit of the earth as a whole. Call me crazy. I mean, I think the other thing that's, worth discussing is maybe, dating culture. How has dating changed over time? Obviously, if, you don't have a home you can take people back to, it's a little harder to have dates or hookups.
Especially right now, if you're living with your parents because of COVID, that would be, now. Oh my God.
Yeah. But,
what was that movie? It was like How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days. And he would literally it was
Robin Williams.
It would be like this guy to scare off women. He lived with his parents, and it was the guy that she ended up with. To scare off women, he'd bring them back to his parents' house, because in the morning they'd be like, "Oh, what a beautiful house," and he's like, "Yeah, my parents really love this house too," and she'd run away screaming. But
Hollywood, you're so crazy. But no, I mean, let's talk about dating apps. How do you meet new people these days? I'm sure there's still people out there, who walk up to individuals, as scary as that is, and say, "Hey, you want to go on a date?" And the other person says, "Oh, that does sound like a nice thing. Let's set something up." But I think most people tend to use dating apps, and I think dating apps are very shallow, superficial representations of people. And
it's so hard to describe yourself on a dating app. It is so hard, especially as a woman, because you don't want to give too much away where men can get creepy and then just start saying that they like whatever you like it's in your profile. I told you, that's why I don't put my political affiliation in my profile, because I don't want someone who's secretly the opposite of what I am to just try to get in my pants and be like, I am this way and I believe this. You know what I mean?
But in a time of such political polarization, would they really go through the effort of pretending to
Men are fucking weird.
Okay.
But what I was trying to say, totally changing the subject. Would you like to share our parents' wedding story and how they met? Because I think this is fascinating for meeting in the 90s.
I'm going to screw details of this up. Our parents, was it our father put the ad in the paper?
No, it was mom.
It was, okay. Our mother put a personal ad in.
She was working for a paper at that point.
Do you want to tell the story? You know more the details.
I'm just going to correct you. It's funny this way.
So she put an ad in the paper, looking for hunk or something.
Yeah, that's exactly what she said.
Hey, you've never seen it.
She said, "I'm looking for a man with a big schlong."
This is fun. And he responded, because people used to read the newspaper and, circle personal ads and be like, I could call that person. And they decided to meet up at a IHOP, and they had pancakes, and from what they say, were served by a bearded waitress, which is kind of a story in of itself. It's I didn't realize the circus was in town or anything.
Well, basically what I understand from this story is that he picked up the newspaper and he picked up a 6-pack with the newspaper, 6 packs of beers, not anything else. Not Four Loko or something. Can you even buy Four Loko in a 6-pack?
In the 1980s in Indiana.
It was 90. It was 1990. And he picked up this and he called up his best friend and he was like, "Greg, I'm going to get married." And he's like, "Great, to who?" And he's like, "I haven't met her yet." And then mom called up her best friend, BB, and was like, after the first date, and she's like, "BB, I'm getting married."
Okay, so we really need to see this classified ad.
After 3 months, they were engaged. He didn't get down on one knee.
God.
They kind of just looked at each other one day. They were watching probably X-Files or some shit, and they looked at each other and they're like, "Let's get married." And then
our huge nerd parents,
they were married 9 months later. So it was a total of a year. It was a year and a day after they first met.
So what the hell was in that personal ad? Man seeking woman.
It was a woman seeking a man.
Woman seeking man. Boy, I'm being awfully sexist. No, that's interesting, because obviously it's expensive to add details to a classified or personal ad. Yeah.
She probably got a discount. She was working for that newspaper.
It's, a very limited format, and the idea of you can extrapolate a future with someone based off of, just a few points, maybe their height, maybe, their basic interests is fascinating to me. I think these dating apps portray people in very different ways. OkCupid is kind of, I think, the app where you use it if you want to get kind of an essay on someone and get all the details you can. Yeah. You got to wring them dry like a sponge. And OkCupid has an algorithm which they say pairs you together with people who are more like you. And I have to wonder, that kind of begs the question, are the best relationships forged from people who are perfectly similar? I'm not saying you need to be perfectly dissimilar in order to have a good relationship, but I have to wonder if you don't want to be dating yourself. Because the person who has all of your identical likes and dislikes probably has all of your flaws, which I imagine could be very irritating. So I would say you would want to be paired. I don't know. I'm playing with the numbers. Maybe
I think it just depends on the person. Like, you could just want to, like, date someone that's exactly like you. But I think that, like, in my personal experience, there's a good balance of, like, being like you and being unlike you.
Okay. So the whole idea of pairing someone together just based off of how similar you are seems a little flawed then.
I don't know. Like, I don't know OkCupid's success rate. Like, how many people have wrote, like, an email to them and been like, I got married to the person. 1 year later, I'm getting divorced to this person.
That's a really interesting point. If we ever put together a dating app, I would say we would have to measure ourselves by our successes. You know, Hinge or whatever claims that they're the most successful, but I don't know how they measure that.
Okay, let's break down dating apps really quickly. The comedian recently did a little sketch, and
let's credit our sources.
Yeah.
Who is this comedian?
I will bring up her name in the next podcast. I'm sorry, I don't remember your name.
Louis C.K. My sister's always been a big fan. Him and Bill Cosby.
She was saying that there's, like, different types of dating apps, and you're on different dating apps for different reasons. So, like, Tinder, you just want to hook up. Grindr, you want to get murdered. And Hinge, you want a sugar daddy.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know how true that is.
I think I've just heard terrible things about Grindr. Like, I've heard some seriously fucked up stories about men, like, going on Grindr, think they're going to go, like, on a date, and then they end up getting murdered because, like, there's, like, people out there that just get on.
Who was telling that story? A ghost?
Yeah, he was telling the story. No, it was, like, a news article about it. But they, like, met on a dating app, and then one of them was pretending to be into the other guy and be homosexual, and he was not, in fact, and he was just a very homophobic individual who thought that there should be less homosexual men on the planet.
Oh, that's fun.
So anyways, dating apps. How do they fuck up dating? And I would love to touch on this because...
We're in the act of doing this.
What I'm saying is, I personally would like to give my perspective on
this. Oh, you do?
This.
I'm sorry. I'm stepping on your toes.
I've been on a number of dates, online dates. First of all, it's scary to be a woman online dating. Let's talk about that. But second of all, I think that it's, like, really hard to meet someone if you're given such minimal information about them. Like, most people, like, it honestly just depends on the person, but I'm the type of person that I want to really get to know the person, either, like, FaceTime them or talk to them a lot, like, text back and forth a lot before I go on a first date. But then there's the opposite side of things where, like, there's some people that just match and then they go on a date later that day. And they don't want to have, like, that getting to know each other period because they'd rather do it in person. The vast majority of the time, try to err on the side of caution and try to get to know the person to make sure they're not, like, a mass murderer. I do background checks, you know, how it be. And try to get to know the person to make sure that I'm not, like, putting my life in danger. But I think it's, like, really interesting that some people just, like, think that that's not necessarily, like, necessary. But I think that online dating really fucks up the dating pool, if I'm being honest. Like, I think that there's obviously a large number of successes, but I think there's also a large number of failures. Like, you hear about those terrible stories of people, like, going on, like, 1,000 first dates and they don't find anyone that they, like, want to spend more time with. No, because
I don't read Cosmopolitan.
I also don't read Cosmo. What the fuck are you talking about?
No, I get, you know, the general point of what you're saying. I got to say, if you're going 1,000 dates and they don't work out, maybe you need to think about your standards.
There was, like, a Hallmark type movie.
Yes, based off a real story, those Hallmark movies. Is it about a uptight big city lawyer who gets drawn down to the country for an important case?
It was not actually...
baker who teaches her the power of love.
It was a Hallmark-esque movie. It wasn't made by Hallmark.
Oh, okay.
But, like, it was kind of like that because this, like, lawyer in... I think it was Seattle, who drove, like, a funky car, was helping out this guy who's trying to sue a dating app. That's why I say it's Hallmark-esque. But
I see you.
And then they fall in love at the end, and he, like, he kind of does find love through the dating app because he ends up suing the dating app. And
what the hell? Jesus.
I don't know. I don't remember if he won or not. It's called, like, 1,000 First Dates. It has Coach from New Girl in it. You haven't watched that show, so I can't.
Interesting. Yeah, so I generally agree with you. I think different dating apps also have different, like, benefits and flaws. You know, OkCupid, you know, the benefit is you kind of really get to know a person. The flaw being, I'm not sure if that's actually helpful. And I do think that phenomenon you're talking about where guys can, or women can just kind of tailor themselves to whatever interests they think will be appealing to a partner is a problem. There's something, like Bumble or Tinder, which I think kind of limits everything to how you look. It's, a very, what's the opposite of body positivity? It's a very superficial, I think, take on dating. You can add in a few bits of information, bits and pieces that
they have really terrible prompts.
Really terrible prompts that aren't, I think, a good indication of what your interests are. But then it really just comes down to people look at your profile for a few seconds, if that, and, make an immediate decision. Are they attracted to you or not? And I think, let's not discount the importance of being attracted to a partner relationship, but the idea that that's the end all be all is a little crazy to me.
Yeah.
You have something, like Tinder and Grindr, which were originally designed for hookups. I get the impression Tinder is more used for like meeting people.
I have no idea. I've never been on Tinder. When
I was using Tinder in college, to be clear, I was on a couple of dating apps. I was not just looking for hookups.
That's what he says. We don't know if he's lying right now.
It seemed all the women, at least I was seeing on my feed, were saying, oh, I'm not here for hookups, looking for a relationship or friends. And maybe women just need to say that so that they think they don't appear as sex obsessed or anything or get the wrong kind of attention from guys. But yeah, that was the majority of people. I'm like, do you understand that this app is primarily designed, I think, for the opposite thing?
Well, now it's like, I feel like Tinder was the only like big app while you were in college, like dating app.
Yeah.
So I think that it was obviously like harder to, now you have like a selection of dating apps.
Sure. And you kind of have to be on all of them in order to like increase your chances, which is
annoying. That's true. I mean, like sometimes when I was on dating apps, I'm not on dating apps right now. But when I was on dating apps, I like matched with some people like on 2 apps at the same time.
Oh, that's awkward.
Yeah. And so, or like they'd unmatch me on one app and then re-like me on another because I had like different pictures in both profiles. So they like didn't recognize me or like something like that. No, I had one guy that was like, oh, I want to get a tattoo with you on Bumble, and then like unmatched me. And because I said no, like I'm not going to get a fucking tattoo with someone. Like I wouldn't even do that with my best friend.
Is that like not a romantic first date?
And then it was like adventurous. I give him that. And then he like matched with me a couple weeks later. And I was like, you unmatched with me on Bumble. Like I called him out on it. Like this is on Hinge. And he unmatched with me on Hinge after I sent that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oof. Yeah. So, there are, I would also say one of the problems is you kind of have to talk to a lot of people. Like it almost is a non-monogamous take on dating.
It is so annoying because like the vast majority of the time, people won't come up with like good questions. They'll just be like, so what's your favorite color? And like, I feel like I can have like really like deep conversations with people. Like I can literally just sit there and talk for like 20 hours straight, just about like random weird shit. And I hate having the what's your favorite color conversation. Like the fuck? I hate going from like having good conversations with someone to like having the conversation of what's your favorite color?
Yeah, and I feel the other end of that is they'll have a really good pickup line, but it turns out they just stole it from, some post they saw online, which is like,
or like a YouTuber.
Yeah, some male sex guru who's like, this is how any woman will be attracted to you. Oh my God, they're using the 7 words we discussed last week. That must be it.
They read the book.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to go into this too much, but I think there's also the problem where because so many of these apps are linked to your Instagram or your Facebook or, your SoundCloud. I've seen that. It's weird. I think Bumble does that now. I think it's...
I was just thinking about that guy that wrote that song that was like, Big Booty Ho.
Classic.
I'll tell that story at some point.
I think it's... problematic because it's a very selective slice of people's lives.
Yeah.
I wonder if there's more either body positivity issues with people not thinking that they're good enough to date.
Yeah.
Because everyone around them seems so much more attractive and refined than they are, given this, selective editing they can go through. Or people having this expectation that the people they date should be several levels more attractive. And I think that's a big issue because if the base understanding of what beauty is based off of what we see on a daily basis, and what we see on a daily basis is filters and clever editing and people who've been dieting for the past 6 months or whatever, I think people will, for obvious reasons, think that a person who is statistically average of weight is fat. thinks that a person who's fat is super chunky, and so on. And I don't have any research to support this. This is kind of a gut feeling based off my interactions, my, reading around the topic. But it does seem, I would say, in younger generations, there are issues with body image as reflected through social media, and that leads into dating culture as well.
Obviously.
People think that they deserve someone better, so they're always swiping, looking for their Prince Charming, their Princess Charming, whatever.
No, and I think that's really interesting. Obviously, we can talk about this more at a later point, but the big issue that I had was like, I'm not a big like weight person. Like, I don't care much about like how much you weigh, but like on several occasions, I would match with someone when I was on dating apps that would like, post like pictures of them looking like pretty fit, like in the gym. You know what I mean? Like, I like a person who takes care of their body. So, even if you are like overweight, as long as you're like eating clean and like making sure that you're not like going out and eating like McDonald's 3 times a day, like I don't have an issue with it. Because like that's a big part of like my life is like taking care of my body, self-care. So I'd see on multiple occasions, like people would post like their best, most fit self. And then I'd add them on like Snapchat or something. And I'd like be seeing their like actual body type, and they'd gain some weight over COVID. And I don't have an issue with that. But like, I kind of felt like it was false advertising. Like, why would you not post your most authentic self? Like what you look like right now? Because like, it's kind of like, okay, if I'm seeing this, like what else are you lying about?
Well, I would say to that, like, that's annoying because then dating kind of becomes a full-time job. Like, I'm not discouraging it. I agree with what you're saying, but then that just emphasizes that dating is something that takes so much of your focus, where every couple of weeks you need to take more photos, you need to update your bios.
No, that's not what I'm saying, but like everything, like with COVID, like it took a mental as well as a physical toll on everyone's body. So it's kind of like, okay, if this is what you like look like I don't feel like weight fluctuates like by like, I'm saying like massive like body gain. Mm-hmm. Like I'd say like, oh, I hate saying this. I hate commenting on weight, period. But like, I'm saying like
more than 20% of body weight.
Yeah. Okay. If you are looking significantly different and your face shape is different, that just makes me think like, okay, are you catfishing me right now? Like, do you know what I mean? Like, it's kind of hard to tell. So we'll touch on this more later. This is an interesting subject for me.
Later today or a different episode?
Different episode. This could be a full freaking episode.
There's going to be there's going to be a second episode released today.
Oh my God, we should do an episode just talking about like what we like in dating profiles versus what we don't like in dating profiles.
You know what I think our listeners like most is us talking not about the topic, but about future topics we want to talk about.
It's our authentic self.
This is true. Yeah. Well, you're getting a real authentic slice of life.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I do want to, before we wrap up, talk a little more about wealth, because you're right. I pushed back a little earlier because I don't think wealth is everything. I don't think finances are the only reason, but I do think they play a very large role.
Yeah.
And so one of the big ones that I want to touch on is the federal minimum wage. Naomi, do you know what time it is?
Federal minimum.
Oh, they say you can put a price on anything, or maybe I just misheard that song. But there's a segment I want to make, and we only have a single take, so it's time for The Price is Wrong. Wait, The Price is Wrong. There's no relation to any game show, past or present.
This isn't fair because I was supposed to come up with a bit, and I came up with a bit. I've been stressing all week to come up with a bit.
And you still have to do your bit, but I wanted to do this because I felt it played in nicely to this game show that I've been working on. Naomi, I want to talk about federal minimum wage. You're going to guess some numbers. If you guess correctly, you don't have to do your bit.
I want to do my bit. Okay. My bit's like great.
This isn't going to be as like meticulous as last week. I just wanted to go over some stuff. So I wanted to ask you some questions about Arizona specifically.
What's my leeway?
Let's say 20%.
Okay.
Either way. They're going to be, pretty small. They're going to be... I don't really care. We're just going to have fun with this. We're going to go. So the question is, what was the federal minimum wage in 2012? And what is the federal minimum wage today?
Oh, God. Federal minimum wage. In Arizona?
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm sorry. This is Arizona specific. So it's minimum wage in Arizona. So the more state policies were currently Arizona state minimum wage is above federal.
I'm going to say
2021.
I'm going to say $6.25 in 2012.
Okay.
And I'm going to say $12.25 now.
Very close. $7.65 in 2012 and $12.15 today.
I'm getting so much better at this game than last week.
You'll be running this game by next time at this rate.
Yep.
So the reason I'm bringing that up is because I want to talk about average house data.
Okay.
So Zillow had data on house costs in Arizona going back to 2012, and they have data on the average house cost in Arizona today. Naomi, all homes, this is tiny postage stamp sized trailers to giant Scottsdale, Ahwatukee,
Arcadia
mega mansions.
Yeah.
What was the average cost of a home listed on Zillow in 2012?
$125.
Interesting. Okay. And in 2021, right now.
Oh, you said average. Fuck.
No, I'm keep going.
Okay.
Don't second guess yourself.
$475.
$475. First one was pretty good. Second, not so much. The average in 2012 was $148,000.
Okay.
Followed by $333,000 today.
Okay, that doesn't make any sense because mom was just talking about we're in a bubble right now in Arizona just to fill everyone in. Okay, it could be a bubble. It could just be everyone from California moving to Arizona. But house prices are skyrocketing right now, just to give a little background. So that doesn't... the 2020 kind of surprises me because like mom was talking about like in her neighborhood they have those like 3-bedroom like 2-bath that are going for like over 400,000. And I was like, are you kidding me? Like if you stepped foot in one of those houses, like I had a friend in our neighborhood when I was younger that like lived in one of those houses. Those houses are worth like, in my opinion, $225 max.
$2.25. Okay, reason I'm bringing this up is I want to ask you now, assuming you work full time for some period to pay off your house.
Yeah.
Full time, you're not paying any other bills, you're not paying your rent, you're not paying for food, you're not paying for any of your associated costs.
All of your money.
All your money is going just towards paying for your house. How many years would you have to work in 2012
on minimum wage?
Afford your house?
It would help if I like actually didn't fail pre-algebra.
You're just guessing. I don't expect you to do
20 years.
20 years. Okay. And in 2021 at minimum wage in Arizona, how many years?
60.
Wow. A little off, still exorbitant. Working at minimum wage, it would be 19,346 hours of work, not accounting for tax or any of those other fees. That's 483 weeks in 2012 or 9 2/3 years. So about 10 years to pay off your house.
Okay.
I'm assuming you're living with someone, they're paying, their money's going towards the bills, and you're paying all this off. In 2021, it was 27,407, compared to 19,346, 27,407, 685 weeks, or about 13 years. So, over this period, minimum wage has risen 59%. Average home prices have risen 125%. And again, this isn't accounting for the fact you're probably also paying for rent. Rent has gone up as well. From November 2014, which I was able to find data on, the average 2-bedroom rent in Arizona was $825. In 2021, specifically May, it was $1,375. So there's a 66% rise.
Wait, for just a 1-bed, 1-bath?
2-bed.
2-bed.
2-bedroom. $1,375.
That's insane to me.
So there was a 66% rise in your rent. However, minimum wage went from $7.90 to $12.15, which is only a 50% rise. So even if you're
like
renting,
the average, like national average for minimum wage right now is like $7.25.
Yes, it's absurdly low, even lower for tipped employees still. Very few people proportionately get paid that. At the same time, though, no one should be making that because it's starvation wages.
Yep.
I'm going to speak for the podcast and say Date These Guys LLC does support a rise in the minimum wage. I don't think it should be $15, though. I think it should be higher. I've heard people say it should be closer to $23. I recognize there are maybe some regional differences, such as, in areas that have very low cost of living, that it should be maybe slightly lower. But yes, it is out of control. Productivity is through the roof. People are smarter, more educated, more capable of their jobs than ever before. The idea that we can't afford to pay people a living wage is insane. Also, the fact that the phrase is a living wage and people are like, I don't want people to live. That's fucked up.
I just don't understand that, to be completely honest. We're dealing with that whole thing right now where like a lot of people just aren't showing up to work because they're getting paid more on unemployment, we can talk about this at some other point, but they're literally just putting up like signs at the like fast food places being like, no one's working here right now. If you're interested in a job, like that's why we're not open right now. Like, please call this number. You know what I mean? But I think it's really interesting because like for years, In-N-Out has been paying like way over minimum wage, like if not $5 or $6 over minimum wage. And they still keep their cost so low.
Yeah. I mean, I do think employee wages do constitute 30 to 50% of most restaurants' total costs.
Yeah.
The thing is, when you talk about making adjustments of relatively small percentages, you know, from say 12 to 15 or even from 15 to 20, you're not talking about huge rises in food prices.
Yeah.
And one good example is Denmark, where they actually pay a living wage to their employees, and an average hamburger
that's in Europe.
is, you know, only a couple of cents more expensive.
Yeah.
But it turns out one of the reasons that restaurants, especially big chains, don't want to raise their minimum wage is because that means it's much harder for them to extract profit out, right? It's much harder for their CEO to make money. It's much harder for their shareholders to make money, right? If the money is going to the people, it's not being sucked out and given to stockholders. It's given to people who actually do work, which I appreciate.
Yeah.
The reason I wanted to do this bit was it is harder and harder for people our age to both find good work that pays them what they're worth, but also to afford the very basic necessities of having relationships, raising families, even surviving by themselves as a single person.
Yeah.
To pretend that, you know, everyone's lazy or everyone's, you know, just too good for getting into a relationship is insane because, finances play an indisputable role in, you know, the changes that we're seeing.
So, Joel.
So, Naomi.
Are we ready to wrap up this episode with my bit?
What bit?
I have a bit.
Oh, I'm so excited. Do you have a theme song for it?
I don't, but I have a great name for it.
Do we have theme music for it? Can we do the John Cena intro? Or is that copyrighted?
Dun, 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 dun. John Cena.
Naomi, God.
This game show I like to call Venom. And
Venom?
Venom.
Okay, I was like, that was a weird pun. Venom. Interesting.
If you are on TikTok, you'll understand this reference, but Joel will not because he is not on many social medias. In this game show, we will be talking about statistics of women in the United States.
Oh, God.
And you're going to have to guess. I will give you a lot of lenience. So if I'm giving you, I'll start off easy and I'll be like, hey, what's the life expectancy of women in the United States? You're going to give me within 10 years. I'm going to be very lenient here. Yeah. So Joel, what's the life expectancy of women in the United States?
It's like 81, 82.
Oh my God, it's 81.1 years.
Yeah, men are slightly lower, are they not? Like at 80.
Yeah, because men are stupid. I'm just kidding.
I know this off the top of my head. I'm very proud of myself. I'm not going to be proud of myself in like question 3 or 4, I'm sure. Percentage-wise, how many women between the age of 25 and 49 are employed in the United States? 25 and 49.
Yep.
Percentage-wise.
Yep.
Ooh. 75%.
Close. 69.3%.
Okay.
Okay.
Why the ones who aren't employed, are they taking care of the home? Are they disabled?
I'm guessing it does not say.
Workforce? Okay.
Going off of that, employment rate of all women in the United States.
Ooh. We're defining women as 18 plus?
Yes.
To what age?
To whenever they decide that they're going to drop dead, because not a lot of people are retiring now.
Yeah, it's an interesting point. Let's talk about the crisis of old people next time.
Oh my God, yeah.
Percentage, 53%.
Very close. You're very good at this game. 51.5%.
Wow, okay.
Okay, percentage of women in executive committees in the United States.
How's that defined?
People on boards of big companies.
Sorry, that's percentage of total women or the percentage of these companies that's made up of women?
Percentage of women in executive committees. So total of all women, any woman in the United States sitting on an executive committee.
I would say 0.01%.
14%.
No.
Breaking glass ceilings.
No, okay, that's a separate question. That is the percentage of women on boards. So there's 100 people on a board. What percentage of them are women? Not percentage of women. See what I'm saying?
I don't, but we're going to move on.
I'm not going to let you forget it.
Okay, let's move into number of women in the United States who are married.
Ooh, number of women who are married.
I'll give you a hint. It's in the millions.
Number, not percentage.
Yeah.
70 million.
How are you so good at this. It's
Just call
69.34
me
million. Working women who wash their hands more often to stay healthy during flu season, percentage-wise.
Working women.
Yep.
These are interesting categories. I'm going to say I'm aware there's a lot of healthcare workers who are skeptical about taking COVID precautions.
Yeah.
So it's lower than my initial estimate. I'm going to say 65%.
84.2.
84. What,
Yeah.
do you have the number for men? I'm interested in that.
I don't know. I can look into that.
Okay.
Most frequent reason for hospital stays and surgery among women is not a percentage or a number. I want to be clear.
The reason, the actual ailment.
Yes.
Gynecological disorders?
Arthroplasty knee.
Knees?
Yes.
Interesting.
We got some bad knees.
I was thinking diabetes or heart disease might be it. Okay.
No, that's the heart disease is the most frequent birth defect in the United States. Cardiovascular defects. Share of Americans who think pregnant women should not be around cats.
Oh God, this is going to be unfortunately high.
This will be your last percentage question.
Percentage of women who think pregnant women should not be around cats. 15%.
55% of Americans think women should not be around cats.
Oh, why?
Okay, Joel, 2 more questions. Last 2 questions.
Oh God.
What is the best state for women economically and socially for their well-being?
Ooh.
Out of the 50 states in the United States.
I mean, I'm going to argue well-being is very difficult to define. I'm going to say, I want to say Oregon, but I know there's some also like crazy far-right militia groups up there, which might skew things. Socially, though, that's the big one, because there's a lot of states with serious like endemic poverty among women. This is tough. I'm going to say Illinois.
Minnesota. Yep. Okay,
I'd love to dig into those numbers.
Yeah.
It's very interesting.
What's the best state for a woman to stay healthy and safe?
Ooh.
It's your last question.
Can she carry a gun in this state?
I don't know the gun laws in this state, to be honest.
Interesting. Happy and healthy. New Hampshire.
Hawaii, which is interesting because it's ranked 31 on the Women's Economics and Social Well-Being scale.
And don't they have a serious issue with obesity in Hawaii?
I have no idea.
Interesting. Okay, well, we have a serious issue with obesity everywhere in America.
That's very true. That is very true. So thank you for playing the game Venom.
This was fun. I like it.
I really liked the cat statistic.
That's a fun, quirky statistic. No, that was pleasant. I want to do that again. I'm glad I could twist your arm.
Okay, are we ready to wrap up, Joel?
I think we're ready to wrap up. So again, I think this is more of a overview of the many reasons why people aren't getting in relationships at our age, in our age groups, millennials, late millennials, early Zoomers, as people in prior generations might have assumed. I think there's a lot of factors outside of our control, both social and financial, that are skewing things. And I think, if anyone's going to complain to you about this, maybe bring up some of these statistics and see the reaction.
Bring them to us.
Bring them to us because, things have gotten a little more complicated since the days of getting out of high school and getting a job at the factory or, settling down at age 23 and pumping out your 2.5
I guess
kids
the
for
closest
American
thing to
dream.
that is like getting out of high school and going just straight to SRP.
What does SRP offer?
I think you can go without, they offer a really good wage. I don't know if you have to have a degree.
Well, this is our hot job tip. If you're looking for work and don't have proper education that would qualify you for
so many high schoolers are going to be listening to our podcast.
I want to be clear. When I say proper education, I mean the education that jobs seem to think is important, not the education that you might actually need in those positions.
Or what will be best for your mental well-being.
That require college degrees. They don't need college degrees. There are many perfectly smart, capable individuals who did not graduate high school, or even middle school for that matter.
Like me.
Naomi's going to college, but only in the sense that she's sitting in the corner of the room each day for classes.
Yeah, I just sneak into classes at this point.
Incredible. Well, Naomi, I think this has been another successful episode.
Have a great week, guys.
Stay healthy. Stay sexy.
And remember, consent is sexy.
Absolutely.